Today's color is really giving me LA vibes, dude. LA. It's a beautiful green that is sort of similar to the one I'm wearing on my chest right now. It was released as part of the fairly new California collection that was presented by the designer Kelly Wurstler. And the colors that are part of that collection are really nice and pretty interesting. A few of them we'll be talking about today. But the main color of the video in this episode of Color Quickie is Palm, CC4. Get ready because we're going to talk about this color in pretty nice detail. I'm also going to give you some trim colors that go really well with it if you wanted to paint baseboards, let's say. And then at the end, we have 3 exciting color pairings, all within the Farrow and Ball color palette. Now, just as a quick disclaimer, if you're not planning on using Farrow and Ball paint, these colors can still be mixed and matched into pretty much any paint company that you use. Although the only way to get 100% accuracy is just to stick with Farrow and Ball. Not sponsored. So getting right into this paint color, Palm was released as part of that California collection, but now it's been lugged into the Archive collection by Farrow and Ball. What this means is you still can get this paint color at your local Farrow and Ball store, but it will need to be tinted. It's not going to be a pre-mixed color that you can buy off the shelf like a lot of their colors. This also means that the paint will be non-refundable, so make sure you love it before you buy it. But if I'm honest, I think I do love this color. It is seemingly a mid-tone. We don't really know exactly how light or dark it is because, of course, Farrow and Ball does not tell us the light reflectance value, which is the percentage of light that any paint color reflects. If I were to guess, this is probably around the mid-50s, maybe 60 max, I would say. A fairly versatile, comfortable light reflectance value. It's not going to feel too light or too dark. It might seem dark if you have a dimly lit room that you're using it in, but what I think it really has going for it is this lovely fresh quality that it presents. It's not quite a yellow dominant green. It is a little bit minty, sort of. It has this very slight cool turquoise touch to it, which gives it some dimension and some uniqueness. And it is one of those colors that when it's bombarded with a ton of light, if you were to use it outside, for example, it will brighten up quite considerably. And then on the flip side, if you bring it inside in a more dimly lit environment with, let's say, north-facing windows, you will see a little more body to the color, and maybe you'll get a little more of that slightly cool bluey green undertone that's present. One of the big things I like about this color is it doesn't feel overly vibrant, but it's still clearly a green. So you're not going to have that ambiguity that some neutrals may have where they kind of are a greeny gray and you don't know what you're going to get once you purchase it and use it on your wall. This color is going to be pretty straightforward. It's a mid-tone, slightly cool green that I think has a very nice contemporary flair about it, like a lot of the colors in the California collection. This is also one of those colors that makes a great accent color on things like furniture and cabinetry, but it's also conceivably a wonderful wall color, not just in one room, but you can use it in larger open areas if you're open to the concept of color, which I think a lot of us are. Unusually versatile color considering how much of an apparent hue it has. So let's get straight into some other colors that go really well with it. And I think for the trim colors, which I have 2 of, I wanted to stick within the California collection because it was a curated grouping that was designed to go with one another. So why not just stick with those? So for the light option, if you wanted light baseboards to go with your palm walls, let's say, I would recommend Salt, which is not as white as you might think based on the name. It has this very light, silvery gray quality to it. It's crisp and a bit chalky, and I think it just coordinates really, really nicely with Palm. So if you're not looking for the starkest, brightest white, you want something a little more nuanced, but you still want a lighter trim, then go with Salt. And then for a darker trim option, or maybe a dark door color on the inside of your home or outside, you can go with Tar from the California collection. So while Salt wasn't quite white, Tar isn't quite black, but they're fulfilling the same sort of roles. I would say this is more of an off black color. It's just soft enough. It kind of feels like fresh asphalt that was laid out and then kind of left out in the sun for a couple weeks just to soften a little bit. Still going to give you a very dynamic bit of contrast, whether you put it next to Palm or any of the other colors we're going to talk about. It's really dark, but it does have just a subtle softness to it because of the added bit of gray rather than just pure black. Now getting into the color pairings, we're starting with Stony Ground. This is going to be your warm neutral canvas color. It's one of Farrow & Ball's classic colors that really serve as a great foundation for a lot of color schemes. I feel like warm neutrals, they're just easy to work with in a variety of areas. So if you're thinking of a hallway color or any of the open living areas, this is probably a good choice to at least start with. You can think about using this one first. And then if you want to add something interesting or a pop of color, then you can kind of pivot to something like Palm. Or you can pivot in another direction and go with Stiff Key Blue for your second color pairing. Now this is going to be a navy blue choice, and in some cases this would be the accent color, but it really all depends, because if you have a lot of the navy blue around and then a pop of Palm, that could be the standout color. I feel like colors like Stiff Key Blue are pretty ubiquitous when it comes to design. You see it more and more often, so it doesn't really pop as much, which is why it's not necessarily my accent color, even though you could use this in accent fashion within your home. Similarly with Palm, you can have it on furniture, cabinetry, vanities, accent walls, and then even as room colors. Although it's going to offer you a very different feel compared to that light sort of crisp, cool green. This is a dramatic, moody blue. It has maybe this slightly grayed out, toned down quality. Compared to Hag Blue, which is one of the most popular colors by Farrow and Ball, I'd say Stiff Key Blue is just a little more powdery looking. It's not as deeply saturated, doesn't have as much of a kind of vibrant yellow undertone that makes it a little more zingy. Stiff Key Blue just feels a little smoother to me overall. And then my third color pairing is a bit of a surprising accent color. It's not the brightest, most dynamic choice in the world, but it's very complementary to Palm directly. It's called Kaluna, and this to me is a lilac gray, just a little bit of a lavender purple undertone that's present, but present enough to be felt, especially when you have it next to green. Because if you didn't know about the color wheel, complementary color pairings are on opposite ends of the wheel, and green and purple, that's a pretty dynamic relationship that they share. This is a choice that you can use in the same space as Palm for something really charged, or keep them a bit separate and then just have two different feels that are still charged, but at a distance. Here's the color palette all together. Please let me know what you think. And if you want to join our channel membership, all you gotta do is press that join button, and it supports us even more than watching and subscribing, which I know you're all doing anyway. As for the next video, guess what? Right over here. Enjoy.